Willkommen, bienvenue, and welcome back to Opus Magnum with Lyte. And today we're looking at hair product. Now this one has a couple of interesting features because this was the first one where I started to really see what it takes to shave off those last couple of cycles. I went back to the others before I posted the videos, but during my learning process, this is where I really started to see what you can do to optimize it. Now, this first one was done on a stream, just getting the job done, playing around with this fancy six-armed thing. It's not optimal by any stretch, but it is kind of fun. Spin it around, pushing it along. Mildly amusing. It's not a great solution, but it's kind of fun. And from there, we end up getting this drop, which builds it in a way that is at least a little bit more efficient than our other many-armed system, such that we are able to assemble it, move it, and drop it. Now, we move it out of the way such that this can get in here because of the wide arc. It would hit here if it wasn't out of the way. But, like we've learned with various other solutions, if you're not holding on to the thing that's going to get dropped when you produce your last input, you're probably not optimal. Particularly in situations where, like this, where you do a lot of binding and then it's just dropping at the end. And so we go from this 52 cycle solution down to a 51 cycle solution. Also, this was affected by the reordering of save files. Don't really know what caused that, but it has been an issue. So it went from drop to early grab. And so now this 5 right here has grabbed this early, such that we don't have to worry too much about things, and so has this 6. So both of these earths have been grabbed prior to needing to move. And then we just assemble the rest of it, pull and pull. But again, 2 pulls from existence into the exit, it's still too much because you still have that 51st cycle in there, and it just doesn't really get the job done. But there's another way of getting to that same level, which, oddly enough, involves just grabbing an extra earth while we are dropping this. It's a weird solution, but I kind of like it. Because by grabbing that waste product and bringing it over here, we build an extra solution that we can just grab and drop slightly before our 6th product, which saves a cycle of creating it, so long as, you know, you had that space for waste in the first place. It's an interesting idea, which we will touch on later, because it actually does help in one of the later solutions. Just not this one. And so to get that last cycle out, we've got this little wasp-shaped thing with a little stinger. And so the goal with this version is to have it such that the moment we bring the last earth out of the input, it's ready to go into the bin. So we pull over, we push down. And so we have a grip on number 6 here to be able to push this in here, such that when we get this last earth out of here, it immediately gets pulled by 5, which has already grabbed it, into the solution. So the path of that final earth is just come out, go in. That again is come out, go in, and now we have a incredibly short path from the last input into the output. You're not getting better than come out and go in because you can't dump it straight into the bin. And we're pulling Earth every time it exists. So we have asymptotic optimality. We've got entry and exit optimality. So this one, I'm confident that 50 cycles is the minimum for this solution. We'll see once I unlock the global records, but this one, I don't see how you could possibly get it below this 50. I felt good about the 51 for a while, particularly having found 2 different ways of getting there. But with a little bit more introspection, a little more experience with what was going on, seeing that you need to get those last couple of cycles, you need to look at the path it takes, not how often you create the result. Then we need to look at cost and area. And this was originally done prior to the inflation that happened on the price of the piston. This small result was originally 40 Gs because it uses a piston and a glyph of bonding. So we've got our piston, we've got our glyph of bonding, and so that used to be 30 Gs plus 10 Gs was 40, but with the increase in price of this piston arm, it now costs 50. And so it is clearly the smallest you're going to get. It's an arm, it's a binder, and every space is used. There is no empty hex that is used in this solution. So you're not getting a smaller area than 8. However, this is no longer the optimal price solution. If you solved it back when it cost 40, it still will register as 40 in your leaderboard. But there is a different 40G solution using the current pricing model. Using a regular arm and just a little bit of a slide. Does make me wonder, however, you should be able to do it without even using the track. And so you would have an arm, green, bond, and then we'll let it go, let's say here. Because it'll look a little something... Yeah, because we'll have it there like this, and then we'll rotate it out, and it'll be right there. So what we're going to do is grab it, 2 to the left, and reset. Repeat that 3 times. The 4th time, you rotate it out like that. Go 1 more and drop it. And so single arm solutions, they're as cheap as you're gonna get. Ooh, that is not quite right. There we go. So somehow looking at this problem for a long time, I just didn't see this because I was too focused on my cute little pineapple that just used a piston and you were done. But yeah, single fixed arm solution. It's as cheap as you're ever gonna get. It's the cheapest item doing simple movements. It's got more area than our cheap or our minimal area solution, but 30G, perfectly good. And so rename it fixed arm. And so now we have our minimum cost, our rejiggering of this one, because I did want to show you that quite often when you needed a piston, you can now get away with a fixed arm and a track. That's the real moral of that story. You don't really need it for this problem because you can just do it with a fixed arm. But there are other problems where you cannot get away with just a fixed arm. But a fixed arm on a track is often as good as a piston. It doesn't have as much flexibility, but being able to do that little shimmy left and right can often get you out of jams that you would normally have used a stationary piston for. Back when piston and arm with track were the same price, piston tended to be easier to think about, at least for me. But using that little track for going back and forth solves a surprising number of problems. But that's all for this episode, so keep those things in mind when trying to shave off those last couple of cycles. Track the path that your last production takes. Make sure that your bottleneck is that last production and it's taking the shortest route possible. When you would use a piston, think about using a regular arm and a track. And never think you're done. Because quite often, you might just be missing a tiny thing that your brain just isn't letting you see. But welcome to Chapter 2. I do plan on going through all of the story puzzles and then working on the journals and other random things on the workshop because this game is fantastic. Once again, if you've got solutions that you want people to see, feel free to share them down in the comments, on Twitter, or on Discord. Always happy to see them, particularly if they're outlandish. Love the outlandish solutions, even though I haven't really been showing them. We might get to one that I particularly enjoy eventually. But for now, I will see you in the next episode of Opus Magnum with Lyte.